Hey, I'm Bill Marion, and welcome to A Nose for Life. If you're a subscriber, welcome back, and if this is your first time here, thank you for giving our content a chance. 2017 has been a rough year for a lot of people. Making a list of all the bad news is so long that I honestly don't know where I would start. This video isn't about news, but for the next several weeks, the holiday season will be in full throttle, and it's irresponsible of me not to address the fact that for a lot of people around the world, including here in the U.S., this is a very hard year to celebrate. There's been so many horrific things happen in the world over the past year that even people who are not affected directly by some of the terrible events that have taken place or the issues that seem to divide Americans more now than ever are expressing a difficult time getting excited for the holidays. So before we get started, I just want to say I get that. I understand. I can only imagine a harder year for my own family. On a personal level, it's been one of the most difficult years I can remember, and that's why I'm making this video. Originally, this video was going to be called Celebrating the Holidays When Everything Stinks, but that title doesn't size up well on the screen. I admit the title Celebrating Holidays isn't exactly clickbait, so if you find anything in this video helpful, I'm totally relying on you to share it on your favorite social media websites. First, let's talk about the holidays we're celebrating, and then we'll talk about celebrating the holidays when everything stinks. Halloween just passed, and it's only been in recent memory, like the past 30 years, that Halloween has been a significant date for adults. These days, Halloween kicks off the entire holiday season. I mean, as soon as the candy is separated, the tree goes up. Okay, not everyone does that, but enough people do it to the point that it's really a thing. So we'll start with Thanksgiving as the holiday season, even though some people could argue that it would be Halloween. But let's get some things out of the way. I realize that everyone with an information-based platform wants to set the record straight or politicize Thanksgiving. So let's just talk about the truth about Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving started out as a week-long celebration between the Pilgrims and the Native Americans in 1621, and it probably wasn't called Thanksgiving, or maybe it was. Media branding wasn't really a thing back then, so we don't really know what they called it, if they called it anything. Perhaps they called it Thank God We're Still Alive, because if not for the Native Americans assisting the Pilgrims, it's unlikely the Pilgrims would have survived. But moving forward, George Washington did call for a time of Thanksgiving, but it still wasn't really a thing yet. There were large portions of the South, for example, that were oblivious to the holiday. So if not for later events, Thanksgiving may have been more like a Festivus. It was Sarah Joseph Hale, who you might recognize as the author of Mary Had a Little Lamb, who championed the cause of Thanksgiving being a national holiday for the whole country. In most ways, she gets credit for Thanksgiving being a thing. For decades, Hale sent letters to everyone pressuring political leaders to set aside a day for the country to be grateful to God. Thanks to Hale's work, Abraham Lincoln gave Thanksgiving an official holiday in November during the Civil War, and FDR changed that date by 1 week in hopes of increasing sales. And yes, Thanksgiving was originally a religious holiday, and for many families, including mine, it still is. It's a day set aside to be thankful for life, but Thanksgiving has been altered over the years. Some people have considered the Native Americans and what took place after that Thanksgiving for the next few hundred years. Because for Native Americans, Thanksgiving may represent the beginning of genocide, which is the opposite of life. And I wish I could change that, and I don't have any words to make that better. I can only say that Native Americans were treated horribly and that there are still unsettled issues. Here's what I can offer: a separation of history and practice. Thanksgiving can still be a day of giving thanks, but we can acknowledge our own personal mistakes and tragedies and yet celebrate the mercy that's been given to us. We're still here, all of us. If you're watching this video, it means that you're still here, and that's something to celebrate, because where there's life, there's hope.
I'm Bill Johnson. Around here, they just call me Dad. I've been trying to read, but I just can't seem to do it. I keep thinking about today, Thanksgiving Day. We Johnsons had a good Thanksgiving, the best we've ever had. I can't help thinking that what made it better was a real feeling of thankfulness. And that's odd, too.
Listen, I know that's hard to swallow. There's a lot of people who have lost loved ones this year, and it seems like this year is worse because of all of the violence that we've seen worldwide, and I really wish I could change that, but I can't. The holidays aren't easy when we think about those we've lost, and I can imagine the Pilgrims felt the same way. The festival celebrated by the Pilgrims that may or may not have evolved into what we now know as Thanksgiving was in defiance of the previous year. Not because of it. Only about half of the Pilgrims survived the voyage and the year following the voyage. William Bradford, founder of the Plymouth Settlement, established the festival and chose to celebrate with the Native Americans. In doing so, Bradford acknowledged that the Pilgrims wouldn't have survived without their help. And in the same manner, our family acknowledges that we couldn't have made it through this difficult year without our family, our church, and our friends. Most of all, we give thanks to God because we believe that God is the source of all of our hope. So in dealing with Thanksgiving during a rough year, tradition can be a great thing or a a really bad thing, especially if it invokes bad memories. So release yourself to reinvent that weekend. Do anything positive that expresses your gratitude for being alive. It doesn't have to look like a Norman Rockwell painting. In fact, we're going to New York. We're going to New York to watch the Thanksgiving Day parade. It's something completely different, something completely out of the box. And that's a check off my personal bucket list. And yes, I'll be making videos about the entire experience, and I'm really excited about that. Not to mention, I'm getting to sing in a choir at Carnegie Hall. Boom! And we now have around 280 subscribers on this channel, which means we've increased by over 200 subscribers in 1 year. You can believe I'm giving some thanks in 2017. Despite all of the tragedy, all of the hurt, all of the pain, I choose to let that go and try to focus on the good things that are happening and the good things that are going to happen.
Told you I'd fix it.
The truth is that a grateful heart, despite our current circumstances that are always changing for better or for worse, goes a long, long way emotionally during the holiday season. Starting the long holiday season being thankful changes our expectations during the holidays. So instead of expecting something like, a magical feeling from the holidays, our willingness to give to others, beginning with our time and attention without expectation of anything in return, has proven in most cases to lift our spirits. And no, I'm not linking to a medical study proving my point in the description, because it's common sense. After all, you've heard the saying, it's better to give than to receive. Now, people talk about having a Christmas feeling, but if no one's ever told you this, let me be the first. A Christmas feeling is still just a feeling, and sometimes feelings are wrong, imagined, fake, and they're easily altered by drugs, and yes, that includes food. Not to mention that feelings can be very personal. We can all share some feelings, but who's to say that the illustrious Christmas feeling that so many people are looking for during the holiday season is the same for everyone? If it's not, and I don't think it is, then in many cases we might be pursuing a feeling that either belongs to our childhood or belongs to someone else entirely. It might be that some people have never had their own Christmas feeling because they've never owned up to the reality of Christmas. And that's where we're going to start. Oh yeah, I'm taking the gloves off, and we're getting real about Christmas. First, if you love Christmas music, you need to pay close attention. Ken Hartley is an award-winning singer and actor on stage and screen, and he has been since he was 5 years old. Ken's performed as a professional illusionist all over the world, and he's an amazing motivational speaker. For most of Ken's life, he has sacrificed his talents for his calling as a full-time worship pastor, and his resume as a worship pastor is impressive, leading worship and lending his voice for pastors like Dr. Ron Phillips, T.D. Jakes, Rodney Howard-Brown, and Rod Parsley, and that's just naming a few off the top of my head. Ken is one of my very best friends, and he's a friend to a nose for life, and you'll be getting to know a lot more about Ken on this channel as he'll be featured on several upcoming videos. Ken is releasing a Christmas CD this year, and I'm telling you, it's the perfect Christmas CD. You can order the CD by clicking on the first link in the description. Once prompted, you'll be asked to enter a code. Enter the code NOSE, N-O-S-E, as in a nose for life, and you can also receive Ken's Illusion Show DVDs at a discounted price. It's an amazing offer and a great opportunity to purchase classical, heartfelt Christmas songs that you'll enjoy this Christmas and Christmases for many years to come. Speaking of Ken Hartley, I've been blessed to co-write with Ken on many occasions, but I think our best work writing together was on a musical production called 16 Hours to Christmas, and a revised version of the same story, 16 Hours to Christmas, A Chimney Sweep's Tale. We based the story on what might have happened the night Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol. Does 16 Hours to Christmas sound familiar? Well, the name probably doesn't, but the plot, well, let's just say there's a movie coming out this Christmas, that's Christmas of 2017, that on the surface seems to be telling the same story Ken and I told on the stage at our church that was seen by a few thousand people. Look, I'm not saying that we have a monopoly on the idea, but I'm looking forward to seeing the movie, and I'll be taking a pencil and paper with me to, make sure. Seriously, Hollywood wouldn't steal an idea from anyone, would they? So what's my point pertaining to this video? My point is that I love Christmas, and if you're a Christmas nut, what I'm about to say might be a little harsh, but remember, it's coming from someone who really loves the Christmas season, enough to write about it a lot. Okay, I hope this isn't a spoiler, but Christmas is about the birth of Jesus Christ. Christians, and in full disclosure, I am a Christian, believe that Christ is the Son of God. We believe that Christ's birth was fulfilling of prophecies of the Old Testament in the Bible. Now, I'm not going to go into a theological rant, but this whole video is about celebrating holidays when it's hard to celebrate anything. It's possible that we can improve our holiday experience by celebrating a better part of a holiday. So for a few minutes, let's separate Christmas from the birth of Christ, because the two aren't always the same thing, and people can get really confused with all of the information that's out there. Now, there are countless videos out in Videoland that will tell you different versions of how Christmas came to be Christmas as we know it. Some of those videos are great, but some are not so great. So let me sum it up for you for the sake of this video. Christmas is the day that was designated by the early church as the day Christians would celebrate the birth of Christ. So let's talk about a few myths. There's no historical evidence that there's any relationship between the day we celebrate the birth of Christ or December 25th with Egyptian pagan practices or the planet Nibiru or lizard people. I just want to clear the air on that. So when know-it-alls who are trying to get you all woke about what's really going down behind the scenes about Christmas and that it's fake and pagan and blah, 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 before you listen to what they have to say, read the account of Jesus' birth in the Bible. You'll find two accounts of the birth of Christ in the New Testament, one in the Gospel of Matthew and one in Luke. At least that way you know what the Bible says on the matter. And Christians believe what the Bible says about Christ and his birth, but the actual date Christ was born is not provided in the Bible. Mostly non-believers or unlearned believers are shocked to learn that December 25th isn't the actual birth of Christ, and we're not for sure in which month Christ was born. Again, this is old news, like really old, going all the way back to 336 AD when under the Roman Emperor Constantine, the church began unofficially celebrating the birth of Christ. And then a few years later, they added it to the official calendar of the church. They started celebrating the birth of Christ officially. And despite a billion 10 facts about Christmas videos that say otherwise, we don't know why the early church picked that day. Not for sure. There are a bunch of ideas as to why December 25th was picked, and it might be because of its relationship to the winter solstice, but that doesn't make it pagan at all. It makes it work. The word Christmas comes from the Mass of Christ. A Mass service, or communion of the Eucharist, is a service in which Christians remember the death and resurrection of Christ. The Mass of Christ was a unique Mass in that it was the only Mass that was to be offered after sunset but before sunrise. There was a very good reason the early church picked a day near the solstice if that was the case. Maybe it was to allow for the longest celebration to be held during the longest night. And that's possible, but we really don't know for sure. Still, Christmas wasn't that big of a holiday for the church for several hundred years. Secular historians assume that many Christian practices, including most of our Christmas traditions, are derived from pagan rituals. Okay, here's the thing. Secular historians aren't necessarily Christians, but that doesn't mean they're scientifically objective either. For example, Christmas trees are often said to have originated by pagans, but in reality, the history of the Christmas tree has several branches. Get it? See what I did there? Christmas trees, branches anyway. As Christianity spread throughout the world, there is no doubt that some traditions intertwined, mixed, and then became something completely different. Christmas trees are a great example of something being added to Christian tradition by several different cultures that were separated by thousands of miles and over several centuries. Furthermore, Christmas trees seem to come in and out of fashion over the past 1600 years. And that's just one of many examples to explain that Christmas, as we celebrate it now, is different than how it was celebrated 1,000 years ago or 250 years ago, especially in America, where it was illegal in many colonies to celebrate Christmas, what with all the mouthing off between Protestants and Catholics in Europe. Once Christmas was legally celebrated in all of America, Christmas trees weren't necessarily fashionable until the 20th century. The celebration of Christmas is always changing. I don't have time in this video to cover how the celebration has changed in my lifetime, which is why we should all loosen up a little bit about having that perfect Christmas. There's all kinds of things about the way in which we celebrate Christmas that places way too much pressure on individuals, and I guess that's why you end up with a few well-meaning and lovable know-it-all Christmas haters. Anytime tradition is more important than truth, there really is a problem. So remember, you don't have to celebrate Christmas, even if you're a Christian, but you don't have to cancel it either. The truth is that Christians do not believe that Christ is in a manger any longer. We believe that he is in heaven, but that Christ has promised to return for those of us who have placed our faith in him. Thank you so much for watching this video, and it's the first video of several videos I'll be releasing during the holiday season this year, including videos about our trip to New York. We're so excited about that trip. Hey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, A Nose for Life. My name is Bill Marion, and again, thank you so much for watching.